already knew this, but everybody, and I mean everybody, is mad as hell and apparently not going to take it anymore. According to a new CNN ORC poll, 75% are not satisfied with the way our country's being governed. 69% say that they are angry with the way things are going in this country. Now, the prime target of the nation's scorn, lawmakers. 85% disapproval for the way Congress has handled its jobs. This is the kind of resentment that creates powder kegs, and this one is about to blow. But what will the fallout be? Joining me now, Ebony Williams, Fox News contributor, former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, Kathy Taylor, she's a GOP strategist, along with Steve Rogers, former FBI military intel officer. Senator!
Hey, it's 15%, was it 14%? It's up from actually 7%, so something's going right.
There's always a silver lining. What happened? How did Congress get everyone this upset?
Well, they've been upset for years and years and years. It started actually, I think, when Harry Reid basically shut down the Senate. They did absolutely nothing. At least now they're communicating and passing something, doing the people's business, the things they were sent down to do.
But the irony of that, of course, is that, for instance, the Paul Ryan spending plan that went through actually angered a lot of people, even a lot more.
Just look at the big picture, though. 2 years of the Democrats not holding that over the head that Republicans are trying to shut down the government. 2 years of stability. The hope is to get a Republican president, keep the Senate, not have Chuck Schumer be the majority leader, and actually have increased numbers in the House. Then you can actually do a lot of the things that we need to do, which is push back on Obamacare, push back on all the rules and regulations, and I could go on and on and on, but you know the drill.
Well, we've got an avalanche of rules and regulations added to coming in 2016, but here's the thing, Ebony. I've had a couple of congressmen come on the show and say, I voted against the spending bill, but give Paul Ryan a chance. 90% of Republicans say that they're unhappy with this. 97% of potential Trump voters say that they're not happy with what's going on. So there's definitely something is wrong. There's something wrong with the articulation of the grassroots. When the message gets to Washington, D.C. I know that the business has to be done, Senator, but people aren't happy with the way it's being done.
Well, and I think this is what many people first saw when Paul Ryan took this post, right? Going into it very, staunch and principled guy. It's hard to get the job done, though, when you don't make those kind of compromises. And so while people are disgusted and fed up with the stalemate, the kind of gridlock that has labeled Washington politics for a while now, then when they see it moving in a way that doesn't satisfy their political palate, there's still outrage. So quite frankly, it really becomes a rock and hard place situation.
It may be a rock and a hard place, but I can tell you this, Kathy, if this is a third world country, whoever was in charge should either be packing their bags, right, trying to get the next flight out, or maybe, getting their military ready to fight off some sort of Arab Spring. I mean, we have some kind of revolution, I think, brewing. And I think, to Senator Brown's point, it's been coming a long time, but I think the rubber's hit the road.
Well, you're right in that this is a referendum mostly on President Obama and his policies, for sure, no matter what the numbers say about anybody else in Congress. There may be a revolt or a revolution.
Let's face it, though, Donald Trump couldn't exist if the establishment Republicans had not botched up the opportunities afforded them to be in Washington in the first place.
Well, except that we had a Tea Party and we had Ted Cruz type shutdowns well before Donald Trump. Look, people are angry. Our streets aren't safe. Our borders aren't safe. Their jobs aren't safe. Their schools aren't safe. There's real reason for the anger. But the real measure of that anger is not going to be these polls. It's going to be voter turnout.
All right, well, voter turnout, we'll talk about that later because that's going to be a critical issue. But right now, the atmosphere in this country is one of palpable anger, Steve. And it's worrisome because there's a political arena and there's just a general public arena. And it's hard for this country to move ahead if we're grinding into, if we're all bundled up in our angst and our anger.
Charles, it's going to move ahead real soon because the American people of all stripes have put Republicans, Democrats, and others on notice that their 15 minutes of fame is up. It took a long, long time, but perhaps through Donald Trump, they have seen, or the leader's coming. He's emerging from the people, from the grassroots. There's a war going on. We talk about a war with ISIS and a war with this and that. There's a war going on between career politicians who lost touch with the people of this country, and now, as you said, you used the word revolution. A political revolution is now surfacing. And you know who's going to win? The people of this country.
But Scott, when you hear a guy like Steve, who's a great guy, say stuff like that, I think I hearken back to Boehner's leaving when he left. His last message was, don't let the false prophets lie to you. Is Washington built a certain way that no matter what the Trumps of the world or the Bernie Sanders of the world promise, They won't be able to go down there and be rulers, absolute
Of
rulers.
course they're not going to be rulers. We have a check and balance system. You have 3 branches of government, and Donald Trump will have to get along and do things with people he doesn't like, and he'll...
This is assuming he wins.
Let's say anybody wins.
Right.
And part of the problem is, quite frankly, is the divisiveness that this president has put forth with the American people. Us versus them. Have-nots. You have the Elizabeth Warren 99% versus 1%. You could go on and on with the dividing and conquering of the people in this country.
Senator, will there be a ripple effect? I believe there will be. If Trump gets elected president of the United States, I don't believe it's going to end there. I think you're going to see senators and congressmen get picked off left and right.
What does that even mean, picked off?
Well, I believe, I'll tell you what it means. It means that they're going to lose their careers, their career politicians. These guys in Washington...
Well, Rubio's not a career politician. He's in there, he's running for one office, and he's running for president.
Senator, with all due respect, all right, the people of this country are suffering because of politicians of all stripes. I'm a Republican, and I'm the first to say that the Republican Party let me down. And I believe there are a lot of Democrats that feel the same way. If you could look into the eyes of the American people and tell them, look, you're better off than you were 4 years ago, then you know what? Then I'll pack my bags.
Yeah, I've never said people are better off, and they're not better off because of what you were saying, because of this president, the lack of leadership on foreign policy, the lack of coordination on any type of economic recovery. We could go on, and it starts from the top.
And I think it's also fair to say, though, we are talking about 2 separate people who are angry for not getting what they want, which is the polar opposite. So maybe the extremes have become the majorities. I do want you guys to check out a headline now. It was actually an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday, how Donald Trump destroyed the Republican Party in 2015. Now, do you guys agree? The writer was Eugene Robinson, and here's the irony. A lot of people who normally would dismiss Eugene Robinson probably wouldn't throw him a life raft if he was, I mean, if he needed it. Love this article because, you know, and I'll ask you first, Ebony, here's the thing. People are happy that Donald Trump has mixed it up to the point where maybe the old traditional GOP that Steve is talking about will never exist whether Trump wins or loses.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to say Donald Trump has destroyed the Republican Party. I think he's finally...
Well, maybe destroyed it for the better. That's
okay.
Eugene Robinson was saying destroyed it in general.
For the better, yeah.
So you can interpret it one way.
Exactly that. Yeah, if they can cut off their nose to spite their face, they're going to be unsuccessful. But maybe Trump is saying a wake-up call is going on here, and it is time to kind of look at a different way of doing this. And so whether Trump gets the nomination or not, I do agree with Steve's point that this is absolutely an indictment of the way things have been done, and it's not going to work very much in the future.
All right, so this is what he said. Trump didn't blow up the party on his own. He had help from a field of presidential contenders that was touted as deep and talented, but proved shallow and wanting. You agree with that?
Yeah, the race isn't over. No, there's good people, and every single one of them will make a better president than Hillary Clinton. And if we don't unite after this primary is over, then she's going to be the president. So the folks who say, you know, I'm going to show Donald Trump a lesson, or I'm going to show Marco Rubio the lesson. Let me ask you a question. If it is Rubio or it is Christie, gosh, if it was Lindsey Graham, would you vote for them as a Republican?
I will vote for a Republican anytime, anywhere, as long as Hillary Clinton et al. does not get elected.
You're the exception, because I can tell you in New Hampshire, specifically, they want to show people lessons. They showed Mitt Romney a lesson. Well, guess what? He had another 4 years of Barack Obama. So unless this party figures it out, I think what Donald Trump is doing is great for the party. I think it's important to talk about these issues. We talk about them every day in our living rooms, in our dining rooms, and he's talking about it in a way only a billionaire who's been on TV can talk about. Now the question is, where do we go if, in fact, he's the nominee or not the nominee?
And he's united. In an interesting way, he's united this country. You're going to see a record voter turnout in the history of this country.
Again, I'm not sure he's united the country. I know there are a lot of people in this country who don't like Donald Trump. He has the highest unfavorables, he and Hillary Clinton. So I'm not sure what you mean by united it. But I will say this much, Kathy. The conversation, the interest in politics, particularly on the GOP side, I can think of my lifetime has never been this high.
That's right.
Ronald Reagan was the last person to infuse this sort of energy and enthusiasm. So they have the ball in their court. Now it's just a matter of, to Scott Brown's point, not fumbling it.
That's right. And I don't think that that Donald Trump is in any way destroying the GOP party. I think that's subscribing far too much power to even the powerful Mr. Trump, because these, these divisive issues and this polarization existed, as I mentioned, before Donald Trump. What he's done is he's given the extremes a voice, he's coalesced, and he's unified a group of people within the GOP who felt isolated, who felt unheard.
Was that group of people the majority or the minority?
Well, they were the minority. They may now be the majority because he's brought more people together.
I think they were the majority population-wise. I think in terms of political power and elitism, maybe they were.
Maybe they found their leader.
It's a marketing question.
All right, guys, we've got to leave it there.
Marketer,
of course, it takes a lot more than charm or persona to get people to actually get off. So, will his supporters actually show up at the polls? Joining me now, Liz Peek, columnist for thefiscaltimes.com. Carrie Sheffield, Opportunity Lives, a senior writer. And back with us, former Senator Scott Brown and Steve Rogers. Liz Peek, so far Donald Trump has turned conventional wisdom on its ear. Sure. And this will have to be the final coup de grace, if you will, of dismissing everything that most pundits thought they knew about the election cycle, the process, getting non-voters to vote.
But I think he will. What we have seen is that Trump followers are absolutely dedicated, no matter what he says, no matter what group he attacks, what he does, stand on his head in a meeting, can't even remember the date of the primary. They are so devoted to him. The skepticism comes from surveys that show, as they said in the brief, that they're not regular voters. But I think that's because a lot of them haven't been engaged prior to this. I think also a lot of them are independents and even Democrats. The demographic for Trump is white, middle-aged men who are sore as can be about the losses of jobs. They're union people. They're not highly educated and not high earners. Those sound like Democrats to me.
Actually, they are, and that's why Bernie Sanders has been appealing to Trump people, which to me speaks volumes. That should be a red flag, people. The fact is that Sanders and Trump want government. They want big government. They want socialized medicine. They want trade protectionism. This is not true conservatism. This is not true republicanism. And it's smoke and mirrors. And I don't think that they're going to show up in the levels.
You don't think they'll show up?
I think they'll show up, but I don't think it's going to be this wave that he's been promised. I mean, he's been giving smoke and mirrors. I think that's what he's going to get in the ballot box.
I will say, though, Steve, so far, and we keep saying it'll happen sooner or later, we'll get details on some of these plans, these economic plans, these fiscal plans. So far, all we know is we're going to have a big, beautiful wall with a nice door. But other than that, I don't know what kind of a trade war we're going to have. I don't know what kind of anything else we're going to have with respect to the numbers. How are we going to get prosperity back to Americans? But people don't care. His followers aren't asking for those details.
Well, I believe details will follow, but let me just say this. There will be a wave. There'll be a wave so strong, so powerful of people, as Liz said, have never been engaged in the process. I've talked to people of all age groups and ethnicities. They're excited about wanting to get this election over and done with and getting this man in the White House. And so when we look at these polls, we got to keep in mind, all right, that new people are getting engaged.
Senator Brown, you won one of the biggest political upsets in history. You did it the old-fashioned way. You hopped in an old truck and you went from city to city to city to city to city to city to town to town to town. Yep. You drove through Sagebrush, Tumbleweed. You shook hands with every single person in the entire state.
Twice.
Twice. And now this would mean that you don't have to do that anymore if you have if you have a certain amount of celebrity.
Right. So here's my feel in New Hampshire. You have different demographics. You have Republicans, Free Staters, Tea Party, fiscal, social conservatives, all the way down to the ultra liberal Republicans, and they're not agreeing. They're infighting. They're fighting for scraps right now, and they will not support and unite as we're talking about. They'd rather give a vote to Hillary. And you ask them, well, what about if Donald? No, I'll vote for Hillary. That being said, you have a lot of his people aren't even registered to vote, so they need to register, obviously. Number two, they need to actually get out to vote. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, you got to get the ground game going, and he's spending money on TV. With respect, it's going to be saturated. There's white noise there between the Senate race that's going on and all the super PACs that are already up. I'm there. You see it every day. I would take that money and go right to the ground game and just
we got to leave it there, guys. I would say also, if he does pull us off, it will be the Reagan Democrats that make the difference, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, we've got a quick election alert for you right now. A brutal winter storm didn't keep Democratic presidential candidate Martin O'Malley from making his town halls. That's right, in Tama, Iowa. Check this out. This is O'Malley. Unfortunately, only one person. I'm going to make note of that.
Who knows? This may be my last appearance if I keep going like this. But I got to tell you, There's nothing that's prepared me for the concept of Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. I don't know how to get my arms around it.
Steve, I mean, you know, you've been involved in law enforcement. You've been involved in the private sector. You know a lot of people.
And the military.
And the military. You disagree, though.
I absolutely disagree. Look, Donald Trump is well prepared. Look, I spent 25 years in the Office of Naval Intelligence, retired as lieutenant commander. So, you know what? He has the ability and he has the respect, which is so important, of foreign leaders. And I'll mention Vladimir Putin, for example. Look, there was a lot of talk and controversy, but
does Vladimir Putin respect him, or just like that he's boisterous?
He respects him because Donald Trump is putting the fear of God into enemies and potential enemies. It's called peace through strength, and that's what Donald Trump is epitomizing. That's what he is conveying to our allies and our foes, peace through strength.
I'll offer you this, Steve. I don't know if that's true or if that's not true. What I think is important, though, is Donald Trump is successfully selling a message that he can be the guy. And this is American politics. And so really the underlying truth of that, we don't really know until if and when he takes that first day in the White House. But his ability to hold command, Charles, we saw in this interview, we watched it, he just had these reporters eating out of the palm of his hand. I have really rarely seen a candidate on either side of the aisle in pretty much 8 years be able to have that temperament and have that control.
And there's no doubt he shifted, Eric. You know, he talked about his obligations, you know, to get along with people, to bring people together. I think he made a great point talking about President Obama. It has been a very divisive last 7 years, and people do want change.
There is no one more divisive than Donald Trump. He has insulted Muslims, he's insulted black people, he's insulted women. So he's the most divisive candidate in the last 10, 20 years that I have seen. So for him to say, oh, we want to include everyone, I doubt that one. I don't take that very seriously.
But he knows he has to. That's what Charles was saying before the break, right? You're not going to win. And he's actually taking a page out of the Obama campaign journal. You got to have a broad coalition.
And he did use Obama's word. We hope and change.
Eric, why
and
don't we talk about the career politicians who have run this country into the ground, who have been very divisive? I don't see.
But Donald Trump is not the answer.
Well, we'll see, guys. Right now,
no, he's not.
Right now, he's
a wrong answer.
He's the overwhelming favorite. We just spent at least 15 minutes listening to him. Now.